Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. This is Abdul Basit Sohail from Lahore, Pakistan. Today we shall discuss the concept of Ijara contract. Previously we discussed the sale contract where ownership of a commodity or property is transferred to another person. But in Ijara contract, ownership is not transferred to another person, but only usage or benefits or usufruct of that property is transferred to another person for certain agreed time period in return for agreed consideration. Ijara also includes letting movable and immovable for hire. Ijara also includes rendering services such as services of professionals. Literal meaning of Ijara is to give something on rent. In law, Ijara means lending some object to somebody in return of some rentals against a specified period. It is the sale of usufruct, it is the sale of benefits, it is the sale of usage for agreed consideration. The legitimacy of Ijara is established on the basis of Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, and Istihsan. There is one verse in Quran that mentions incident of daughter of Hazrat Shuaib alayhi salam. The daughter of Hazrat Shuaib alayhi salam recommended the services of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam to his father. Translation of that verse is, said one of the damsels, O my father, engage him on wages, truly the best of men for thee to employ the man who is strong and trusty. And there are examples in Sunnah also where Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, give wages of the person hired before his sweat dries up. If someone hires a person, let him inform him about the wages he is to receive. One Sahabi reported that in the age of Holy Prophet ﷺ, the owners of the land used to let their lands on rent. All the companions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ unanimously held that Ijma is a lawful, Ijara is a lawful contract. They themselves practiced all lawful forms of this contract. In Sharia, permissibility of Ijara has been constructed on the basis of Istihsan. So what is Istihsan? Istihsan is removing hardship imposed or caused by qiyas. We can understand Istihsan with the help of example. Prophet has prohibited sale of non-existent items. So by way of qiyas, on the basis of qiyas, we can conclude from this hadith that sale of a car which is not yet manufactured by a company is prohibited. But in practical life, the company will never manufacture car without an order. So by removing this hardship with the help of istihsan, we can conclude this contract. So application of istihsan here is that hadith was not intended to apply items that are manufactured or customarily sold by order. So analogy would thus invalidate Ijara, but istihsan exceptionally validate it on the authority of the Sunnah and Ijma. Imam Sharaksi stating the lawfulness of this contract mentions the contract and dealings practiced before Islam are valid practices for us also in the absence of any text disapproving them. There are two types of ijara. Number one, ijaratul ashiya, which is also called ijaratul an. Second type of ijara is ijaratul ashkhas. It is also called ijaratul dima. We can understand both types in detail. Ijaratul ashiya is to hire of the things. For example, hiring of land, hiring shop, or hiring of animal for rent. Ijaratul Ashya is to transfer usufruct benefits of a particular property to another person in exchange for rent. It is similar to English term leasing. In Ijaratul Ashya, the lessor who gives property to another person is called mojir, and the lessee who takes property, who takes shop or animal on rent is called mustajir, and rent payable by the lessee to lessor is called ujra. So second type of ijara is ijaratul ashkhas. Ijaratul ashkhas refers to hiring of the services of the professionals. For example, hiring of a painter, hiring the services of the painter. Ijaratul ashkhas is to employ services of a person on wages given to him as consideration for his hired services. In Ijaratul ashkhas, the employer who hires the services of professional is called mustajir, and the employee who renders the services for consideration is called ajir. There are two types of ajir. Ajir is the person who renders services, who provides services for wages. There are two types, ajir khas and ajir mushtarik. Ajir khas is the person who renders services for one person at a time for a fixed period, such as painter. So painter will always provide his skills, his services to one person, and Ajir Mushtarik renders services for large number of people at same time, such as tailor. So tailor provides services to many people at a time. Laundryman and ironsmith, etc. So these are the points that we should remember. Benefits to be derived should be known and specified. Benefits to be derived should not be unknown or unspecified. Benefits, which is the subject matter, should be permissible. This should not be impermissible. Rent should be fixed between both the parties, and the period of contract should be specified. These are the conditions for Ijaratul Ashya, which was the first type of Ijara. Corpus of leased property. It means the ownership, the certifications of the property should be in the ownership of a lessor. Lessor should be actual owner of the leased property. Only its usufruct should be transferred to lessee. All the liabilities arising from the ownership shall be borne by the lessor. For example, taxes. So taxes will be borne by the lessor, but the liabilities referable to the use of property shall be borne by the lessee. For example, electricity bills. Lessee will pay electricity bills and other bills. Any harm or loss caused by the factors beyond the control of lessee shall be borne by the lessor. Lessee is required to exercise maximum care of property and use of property. Any improper use of property will change his status from trustee to usurper, and in case destruction takes place, he will be liable for compensation. So here lessee is responsible for his negligence, for his improper use of the property. But if lessee is not do his negligence, so any harm or loss caused by the factors beyond control of lessee shall be borne by the lessor. Here, subject matter of the ijara must have valuable use. Things having no usufruct cannot be leased. Usufruct should be known and identified that we mentioned earlier. Leasing period should be fixed, specified whether long term or short term according to the majority. So, according to the majority of the jurists, they don't differentiate between long term. According to them, leasing on long term basis or short term basis is permissible, but according to my Imam Malik rahmatullah alayh, they say long use of usufruct is not advisable because it can create tussle and problem between lessor and lessee. So they recommend that there should be a short-term period. For property of the orphans, according to Hanfi school of thought, they don't allow to give on lease for more than 3 years. So all consumable things, for example, money or wheat, cannot be leased out. Subject matter should be something that can be delivered. The subject matter that cannot be delivered to the lessee cannot be leased out. Renting stray animal that is not in the possession of the lessor cannot be leased out. So its lease is not permitted. Object and the purpose of contract should be lawful. Renting house of gambling for gambling or manufacturing wine is not allowed. Object, purpose of contract should be lawful. Lessee cannot use leased asset, leased property for any purpose other than specified in the agreement, in the contract. Lessee is liable to compensate the lessor for any loss to property due to his negligence that we discussed earlier. Rent should be lawful, thing and noun. Rent should not be paid in same genus. For example, a house cannot be rented on the exchange of another house. This condition is particular to Hanfi school of thought. So rent should not be paid in the same genus. Unlike sale, the contract of Ijara can be enforced from some specified future date. In contract of sale, you cannot do or conclude a contract enforcing from some specified future date. But so far as Ijara is concerned, Ijara is valid even enforcing from some specified future date. Use of land should be specified. Lessor is giving for cultivation purpose or for construction of the building. If the beast or animal of a burden is hired for carrying a burden, quality, quantity of the burden and the destination and the period for which is required should be stated. All the things of contract should be clear between both the parties. So when rent will be due, rent of hired property becomes due on the basis of two conditions. On attainment of usufruct of a property, when the lessee attained the usufruct of property, or the ability of lessee to use usufruct of hired goods. On attainment of the benefits of the property or ability of the lessor to use benefits of hired goods. Ijara is binding and irrevocable contract. Thus, it cannot be revoked unilaterally. But if any party violates the contract, so that can be revoked. Conditions for Ijaratul Ashkhas, which is the second type of Ijara, work required to be performed should be specifically fixed. What services will be hired? It should be specified, such as carriage of the goods, building house, etc. Performance or work should not be prohibited in Sharia, such as singing or to kill another. Non-permissible services are not allowed. Service required should not be mandatory, such as to pray or to perform. If someone is hiring the services to pray namaz, for the namaz, so such kind of services are not allowed to render. Ajir Mushtarik, independent contractor such as a tailor or a shoemaker will be held accountable or responsible for the loss of goods in his custody. regardless of whether they are destroyed by his fault or not. So this ruling is given by fuqaha on the basis of public interest. So what are modern applications of the Ijara? There is one concept, that is finance lease. What is finance lease? Finance lease is based on the contract between lessor and lessee for hire of specific asset, so selected from manufacturer or vendor of such asset by the lessee. Lessee selects a product or property from the vendor. So the rentals during the fixed primary period are sufficient to amortize the capital outlay of the leasing company. So in finance lease, the lessor recovers all the amount from the lessee and provide the element and provide the element of profit. So what are Sharia issues in finance lease? Risk is borne by a lessee, so instead of lessor. So in Sharia, risk of damage and obsolescence is exclusively borne by lessor. Lessor recovers the entire cost of equipment plus profit. These are the two conditions that make the contract doubtful from Islamic perspective. What is operating lease? In this non-full payment lease, as rentals are insufficient to enable the lessor to recover the full initial capital outlay. In this, so lessor does not recover total cost of the property. Residual value is recovered through the disposable or releasing the equipment to other user. So in this, risk of damage and the depreciation is borne by lessor. What is direct leasing? In Islamic bank, these Islamic banks allow the customer to use capital assets owned by the banks for a limited period of time, ranging from a few days to a few months, depending upon the asset in question. In return, the lessee pays a monthly or annual rental fee. So direct leasing means Islamic banks give their assets to lessee on rent. So references for this video: Islamic Law of Contract and Business Transaction by Dr. Tahir Mansouri and Glossary of SEMA. Thank you for watching this video. May Allah forgive my mistake in content and concept.